Ing the quiet corner wasn't a secret. I dispatch trains for a living, point steel where it wants to go, then convince it to wait its turn. The screens in front of me are an argument between momentum and math. If I do my job, people arrive where they said they would, near when they promised. That's my favorite genre of miracle, ordinary on time. My wife, Mara, runs an after-hours language club at a wine bar 3 blocks from our apartment. They call it the quiet corner because the bar keeps the back room dim and asks people to talk like meaning is a porcelain thing. On Thursdays, she goes there with a canvas tote bag that looks like it knows verbs in 3 languages and a notebook that knows how to listen. The night this started, an inbound freight stalled outside the city in a way that made every commuter train sulk. I stayed on the console until past midnight, watching delays ripple like someone had thrown a clock into water. At 12:19, my phone hummed on the desk with a message I wasn't supposed to see. An auto-forward from our shared credit alert. Quiet corner wine, 2 charges, 22.47 and 23.51. We share the account because adulthood loves spreadsheets. The second charge felt like a second act. Mara came in at 12:54, scarf smelling like the bar's rosemary fries and the kind of laughter that leaves a room warmer when it goes. She kissed my temple and put her tote on the chair we pretend is for guests. "You still on?" she asked, seeing my console open to a map that looked like a subway dreaming of snakes. "Almost done," I said. "How was the club?" "Good," she said. "We argued about whether words should apologize for themselves." Mateo read Neruda like he was telling a secret to the couch. She smiled with half her face, the half that believes better furniture makes better ideas. 2 charges. I asked, keeping my voice like a light set to low. "A second glass." She didn't blink, didn't bristle. 2 tabs, she said, shrugging. They closed hours at 11 because Clara, new server, lost the check and started a new one for the last round. "Sorry, I'll keep the receipts." It was plausible the way rain is plausible in a sky that's been threatening all day. I nodded like a citizen. "Want toast?" "God, yes," she said, and kissed me again, and ate the toast like it had passed the bar exam. We fell asleep with our feet touching like a handshake under a table. I tell you this so you don't file me under men who snooped. I don't go looking unless the house starts making a sound it didn't make yesterday. The quiet corner usually posts photos after the club, chalkboard phrases, someone's hand over a glass. On Friday morning, I scrolled like a person in line for coffee. There they were. A blurred long table, a word of the day, a close-up of conjugations written in Mara's neat, bossy hand. In the comments, one account said, "Perfect light for confessions." The handle belonged to Julian Hale, a photographer who occasionally rents the bar for early shoots because the back room treats sunlight like a favor. Julian had hassled me 2 months ago in the hallway outside the bar when I came to carry Mara's tote. "You're the husband," he said, as if it were a role I auditioned for. Lucky man. He had that quick, polite charisma photographers wear like aperture. Not a villain, but a person who thinks proximity is permission until corrected. Friday afternoon, Mara texted. "Quiet corner added a Sunday session for people who work nights. Might test it once." I typed, "Do it asterisk then, want company." She sent a heart and a rain cloud, our code for later, not this time. At work, the weekend was a parade of minor emergencies pretending to be parables. I put trains in the right order, then apologized to people out of practice at patience. On Sunday, I took my lunch at 21:30 like a person whose life likes 24-hour time. I walked to the bar because I wanted to see the room that teaches my wife to glow. The quiet corner at night is a ship-turned library. The bar keeps the main lights low and the back room lower. A chalkboard by the door said, "Tema, borrowed words." Inside, a dozen people leaned toward each other as if hearing required architecture. Mara stood at the end of the table, fingers on a notebook, listening with her whole face. Julian sat near the middle, head tilted, smile in the key of yes. I stood in the doorway like a person arriving at a movie whose preview he'd already seen and liked too much. I didn't stay. I didn't want a set change to become the story. At 23, 12, between a freight that insisted it was a swan and a commuter that begged to be a bullet, my phone pinged with a photo from Mara. 2 mugs of mint tea with steam like handwriting, and the words closing soon. I sent a thumbs up and a knife and fork emoji because we pretend our emojis are a dialect. She came home at 00:07, smelled like the idea of a good decision, and told me that Sunday sessions might be a good kind of quiet. We put our phones face down and ignorant on the nightstand and slept like a contract we'd read carefully. The next week, a small complication. My mother called to say she was popping in on Thursday as if flights were errands. She loves us like a project. Mara took it well with a smile that showed her gums because the alternative was a sigh the size of Montana. "Bring her to the club if your shift lets you," she said, bold like a dare. "We could use a native critic." I did. We arrived at 20:03. I introduced Mom to Clara the server, to Mateo of the Neruda couch, to the chalkboard. I watched Mara confirm chairs like a general who knew the names of her soldiers. Julian walked in late with a camera slung in a way that made even quiet people suspect he belonged in a frame. He saw me, smiled without threat, and found a seat 2 places from Mara. He spoke exactly once in Spanish and once in English, and the room liked both, unfairly but truly. After Mom said, "He's handsome, but he frowns when he listens. I don't trust frown listeners." I loved her more than usual in that moment because it sounded like a blessing disguised as bias. Thursday ended without a second charge. Friday tried to be boring. Saturday was a tyrant. Sunday, the quiet corner posted a story at 21:55. The back room with 1 table still occupied and the caption afterwards T**. In the frame, a hand I recognized as Julian's from his photographs, long fingers, the small paint scar near the thumb. Next to it, a notebook that looked like Mara's. The angle suggested intimacy. The reality could have been proximity. I felt the house make a new sound. She came home at 22:58, earlier than the first Sunday, later than the kind of early that never associates with Julian. We did the domestic ballet, shoes off, a laugh that belonged to the day, 2 spoons in the sink like a duet. I waited until the kettle began to hiss, old appliance, honest warning, before I said, "Did the afterwards tea come with opinions?" She glanced at the kettle like it might have betrayed her. "Julian stayed to ask about the word we started with," she said. "Borrowed. He's doing a series on borrowed places." She smiled, not coy. "I told him words can be generous without becoming thieves." I nodded. "How much tea does it take to say that?" "Half a mug," she said. "And 2 minutes of you watching me decide how to say it." I wanted to believe her too easily. That's a danger for decent men. So I wrote a list, not a rule. Dispatchers hate rules that pretend to be schedules. On a postcard from a museum shop I wrote, 1. Tell me the part you want me to infer. 2. No afters without names. 3. If the room is too quiet to quote, it's too quiet to stay. I taped it inside the cupboard where we keep the cheap tea we promise to use before we buy good tea again. Mara saw it the next afternoon and pointed at number 3 with the pen she uses to annotate novels. "Fair," she said. "I'll add this. 4. If I want to keep talking after I pay the bill, I'll do it with you. Or I'll tell you why not." She kissed me like she was writing her name on my sternum in a language without vowels.